Hello, hello. We are Carissa and Tom from Crown and Reach.
We are doing a session today called Intro to Multiverse Mapping. We've done this loads of times live, but people have got in touch asking us for a recording that they could share with others. So we're making this right now for you.
And I'm here, I'm semi playing the role of live participant, but mainly I'm here to help clarify things as we go, hopefully ask some good questions.
Yes, because when we do this live, we actually get people doing exercises in live in reality. So if you want to play along, grab a pen and paper right now, and we'll get you to pause the video at key moments and then pretend like you're doing the exercises with us. You'll get loads more out of it that way. But we also understand if you are using this to fall asleep to and you're not going to actually do the work. You should still get loads out of it.
This is, we should say, one of our foundational methods that we use in our consulting practice. We've got a lot out of it, and we think you will too.
Fantastic. Without further ado, have you ever been in a meeting that was so high level it felt disconnected from reality?
Yes.
Yes, I asked this at a conference as part of a pitch for the session that I was running about multiverse mapping, and I swear every hand went up.
Mm.
How about the other? Or a meeting that was such a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details that you lost track of why you're even there in the first place.
Also, yes.
Also,
A
yes.
1,000 times yes.
Yes, nearly all the hands went up again at that conference. Now, both of these are a question of granularity. Are you dealing with stuff that's too big and too smooth-sided and is just too big to deal with? Or are you breaking it down into tiny grit and you've got thousands of pieces of grit and you can't handle all of those? Or are you finding something in between? You need to be able to operate at all those levels of granularity, actually. And what we often find is difficult in work situations and sometimes in life situations, but particularly if you're putting together a product or a service, particularly if it's digital, is a mismatch in the level of granularity. Here we've got an executive who likes to move the pieces around, but he's not understood the reality of a bus.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So we're going to introduce the two teams who are involved who operate at very different levels of granularity by default. At the top, we've got Team Hawk. Now they're standing in for the execs, the stakeholders, investors, these sorts of people who are flying around and have a big overview over a large amount of space, but they're seeing everything at a distance. They're not in the details, in the weeds of everything. They tend to be saying things like, meet the goals. We need accountability. We need a sense of urgency. Meanwhile, at the bottom, we've got Team Otter. These are standing in for the builders, the workers, the individual contributors, the people who are actually on the ground, or in this case, under the water, working in the murky depths, feeling their way through, working in sometimes difficult conditions with stuff that's often not even visible to the hawks. And they're saying things like, but the priorities are unclear. The strategy is vague. Why aren't you listening to us when we say that things aren't working? These two are often talking past each other. I think we've both experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, we get a lot of hands coming up at this point as well. So here's what we're going to do today is we're going to introduce a taste of how to help people move when the path isn't clear. And the first thing that we're going to look at is those animal teams, the Team Hawk and the Team Otter, and how they can collaborate, even though they're wildly different in their level of granularity, in the things that they care about, in their propensity towards the world. We're also going to see that the behaviors that are outside of your control and critical for your success, we're going to map those out, and that's what a multiverse map is looking at. We are going to explore then the enabling reality that most other mapping exercises avoid like the plague. We're going to see how simply ordering coffee can shed light on complex products and services. This is where you'll want to have your paper and pen handy if you haven't grabbed it yet. We're going to find out why your brain's biggest superpower is also its biggest weakness. We're also going to learn a trick to turn that weakness into an even greater strategic superpower. That's quite a cheesy one. And I'll also share the shocking but ever so common origin story that actually sparked this whole method, this whole body of work. And we'll see how that turned around in the end as well.
I'm most excited about the coffee part.
The coffee part is good. Should we have a coffee after this?
Absolutely.
I really want a coffee after this. So who are we? We are Crown and Reach. And we work with leaders who have a product or service that should be doing better than it is, who've tried the obvious fixes and still can't get past the plateau. We use methods like multiverse mapping, but also several others that we've developed or that we've found lying around that actually work. We've been doing this work for over 15 years now, with previous skills before that we don't talk about. We've taught innovation masterclasses to thousands of people at conferences and inside of companies. And we work directly with companies to deliver on innovation products and turn around things that are struggling.
We've had some nice clients, some little logos there. And Tom is the author of Innovation Tactics from Pip Decks, which is 52 cards that you can combine and remix to get unstuck on innovation problems.
It is bought by more than 40,000 people, which is quite exciting. And some of the methods that we're looking at today are in there, but not in as much depth as you'll get in this session, but still worth having. So we're going to start with an exercise. This is where you grab your pen and paper, and we're going to tell a simple story of you ordering coffee. Now, the situation you're going to be in is that you've been dropped in an unfamiliar city. So we can try this together. You've been dropped in an unfamiliar city.
Rotterdam.
Fine, Rotterdam. You don't know Rotterdam, just to check.
Not in the slightest.
No, if you're watching and you do know Rotterdam, pick a different city. But the idea is you're dropped in Rotterdam and you want to find a coffee. So what do you do and what do you see? And you're just going to tell the story on, in this case, we'd be using these little green post-it notes, but you can just write it out left to right on a piece of paper as well. What do you see first? What do you do first? Then what do you see? Then what do you do? Then what do you see? Then what do you do? It's just this cycle of, at the level of how you tell me about it if we were together in Rotterdam and you were talking through your experience.
Okay, so shall I start with what I'm seeing?
Go for it.
I'm seeing I'm on a street and I can't see any coffee shops.
Yep.
I'm like, I need coffee, can't see any coffee shops.
Yep. So you see no coffee shops. What do you do next?
Shamefully, I would default to looking on my phone.
Yeah.
Do a little search for local coffee shops.
Do you know everybody says that pretty much? Search for local coffee shops, then what do you see?
I'd love to have a real proper paper map, but it's not going to happen. Then I would, on the map, I'd see some red dots clustered, hopefully around where I am.
Nice.
I'd then, what would I do? So that's what I'd see. Then I would look to see if I can find some reviews for each of those.
Good. Cool. That is the nature of the exercise. So you see how it works. You're just noting those down as you go across the page and keep going until you've found a coffee. Pause there and write out your map if you are playing along with us. We're going to switch the screen share so that we can see some examples that we made before. So here are some real examples that were made by people in one of the live workshops. And what we want to show is we've got the structure of the story here. So we did this in little groups, and there's this story that we've just discuss what it takes to go and get coffee, start where you are, use the green stickies.
WOPSAD, very useful.
That's it, WOPSAD.
What one person sees and does.
Nice. And so we've added in this idea of person and purpose. So there's you in an unfamiliar city, you want to get coffee. And here's what they do. Here's one story that they told. Look out of cab window. So there's an assumption right away that they're in a cab. Ask a driver or a local. Get out of cab. Ask someone who looks like a coffee drinker. What does a coffee drinker look like? Sort of jittery. Coffee search on Google or Apple Maps. Consult TripAdvisor. So they've actually stacked a load of stuff together, all of which are probably really options. This is really common as you see these maps forming. Actually, when you first write out the sequence, it's a little bit haphazard. You don't get it right the first time. And that's one of the secrets to making these maps is you just get something down and then you can fix it later, clarify it, clean it up.
Yeah, no, so starting with quite a low stakes real life example, like looking for coffee.
Yeah.
It makes it not too stressful if you get it wrong.
Exactly. And the people who are with you are all aware of it, so they can help you to clarify the steps and fill in the gaps and that sort of thing.
Have you ever had anyone say, but I don't drink coffee?
Oh, yeah, sometimes. Some people say, but I drink tea, actually, or I don't drink any hot drinks. Should we look at another example? This is very simple. So they just went, check phone for internet access, search coffee shops near me, go to a shop. there's a bunch of steps missing here, aren't they? Which they could really put in.
Hmm.
Go to the ordering place, order the coffee, pay for it, wait for it, get it and drink it. So that's lovely. A nice simple story.
They've covered sort of bigger granularity steps, haven't they?
Exactly. And this is one of the real lessons of how to do this sort of mapping is the level of granularity you go to is a choice. And you want to go more granular if it's something that's more important, but you only map what you need to map. So you probably don't need to write out that you swipe your phone screen up,
Mm.
type in your passcode, then you swipe through the screen until you find Google Maps, then you tap the Google Maps icon. That's too much.
Is it fair to say that people generally land on roughly the right level of granularity?
Yes. And the advice that I tend to give is imagine that you're a little demon sitting on their shoulder and just they're narrating to you what they're doing in a natural sort of a way
Mm.
at a reasonable pace. They're not going to tell you every single little detail they do. It's going to be much more like the example that you gave at the start, where open Google Maps, that's fine. That's an action that anybody can say, yeah, I know what that looks like, and I know that it works. Then there might be more detail when you got to the looking at reviews. That could have been interesting because there are different ways that people look at reviews.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where it also gets interesting because what we realize is there is no one right way to order coffee. There's no one right way to find a coffee shop, and there's no one right way
Mm.
for a coffee shop to operate.
I'd love to be someone who I just wander the streets until I find a coffee shop that looks appealing. I think that's, if you're going to travel, that's how to do it.
That is how to do it. We have done that. It doesn't work in countries that don't have any good coffee shops.
That's true. That was a long warning.
Looking at you, Paris. Paris, get better coffee. If you're in Paris and you think there's good coffee there, please let us know. So, one example that I always like to share is there are some coffee shops where you go in, you go up to the counter, you can see the menu up behind the baristas, and you place your order. They ask you to put your name on the cup, that sort of thing, and then you pay. Then you wait at the other end of the counter and you get your coffee. Then you go and sit down at the table and you drink the coffee. So that's one way of doing it. But there's another way of doing it where you go into the cafe, you sit down at the table, they bring you a menu, you order a coffee, they bring you the coffee at the table, you drink the coffee, then they bring you the bill, then you pay. And both of those are valid ways to order a coffee and to have a coffee. But if you are the coffee shop maker, if you're building a coffee shop, you want to be pretty clear about which one of those methods you're going to support, which type of customer you want to have.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's this thing that it's not always, that they're not the same. There's not one right answer, but it is important for you if you're building a coffee shop to know which one you are doing. And that's where we come back to this exercise. So if you were play along with us, how did you get on with writing out your coffee story? Now you've seen this question of different levels of granularity and different ways of maybe thinking about ordering coffee. What did you realize? What we commonly get into is this idea. We've already seen this. There are many ways to order a coffee. There's no single right answer. It's the same for almost any product or service in the world. There's no single right answer for anything. But if you want to sell coffee and you want to work with a team, then you need a shared theory of success. So if I'm trying to make a Starbucks style coffee shop, I don't know why I would, and you're trying to make a sit down and get a menu type coffee shop, and we're both trying to work on the same project,
It's not going to work, is
it's
it?
not going to work well. So we better make that map and figure out what it is. And that sort of incoherence is quite obvious at an early stage. But with every team that we've ever worked on, I think there are incoherences like that at some level. And once you
Mm.
dig those out, that's when you can start to make progress.
I mean, also, I would say it's not always obvious early on when you've got those kind of disagreements, particularly with with a physical thing like a coffee shop, those things tend to surface quicker.
Yeah.
If it's a digital product or a digital service, a lot of that is hidden.
Yeah.
And you don't until it's time to ship something, and then everyone's like, what exactly are we shipping?
Yes, not we haven't been through that experience at all. So yeah, really, we're trying to figure out here which user behaviors do we want to support, which behaviors are we relying on. Now, this is true if you're making a digital product, but also if you're doing a service, you need to know what is the story you're supporting for your customers. So that's great. We've done the first part. Why does this matter? So remember back to the start, we had Team Hawk, the stakeholders, and Team Otter, the builders. We put them on a little map here. Team Hawk are up in the sky, Team Otter are down under the water. And we're going to use a real example from history here, a real company who were really good at doing finance loans, that sort of thing, so giving credit. And they wanted to expand into more markets, and they were looking at a niche in auto finance. And so we've got Team Hawk up there, right at the top, with some goals, which we put in purple, and a story that they've got in pink. And these colors come back throughout the whole thing. Stories go in pink. And so the story to them is, look, this auto finance is a low-hanging fruit type market. Executives love talking about low-hanging fruit, in my experience. And they came up with the idea of a balloon finance service. Now, what the hell is balloon finance? That's why we have this picture here, because it's this slightly strange concept. If you get a particular sort of car loan, then you pay a deposit, then you pay monthly payments for 2 to 5 years. But at the end of that, you haven't paid for the whole car. And what's left is in the industry called the balloon. What you would typically do at that point is pay off the whole balloon and keep the car, or exchange the car and you now no longer have it, and the money you've paid onto it is just gone effectively. And you now get a new car and you carry on with a new set of monthly payments, or you return the car and you just don't have a car anymore. So those are the options. Now, the company in question, the execs thought there would be people who would like to refinance that balloon so they could carry on with monthly payments. And because they were so good at giving efficient finance, they thought that they could give you a better deal and it would be obvious for people to refinance that balloon.
Logically, financially, it is the sensible choice.
Perfectly rational.
Mm-hmm.
So here's they set Team Otter going with let's go, let's build this thing. Team Otter have a load of different jobs that they know they need to do. But how do we prioritize these different jobs? How do we understand which of these are relevant, which aren't? Have we got any gaps in there that we're not really thinking about? How do we connect the high-level goals of Team Hawk with the details of day-to-day work that the Team Otter is going to do? Well, we're going to tell a story. One of the things that always happens here, though, is that the high-level goals, as clearly as they're stated at the start, turn out to be murkier than we maybe anticipated. When companies have written down nice, clean OKRs, there almost always are other things going on in the background that you're not necessarily privy to, that can't be explained very clearly. In this case, it may have been that actually the execs, the Team Hawk's goals included that they needed to show they were doing something, that they thought the strategy is good, this will work, now we just need to execute, feeling like they've given the team clear direction to build something. And they might be telling themselves stories that they need to learn by getting into market, or that this is all about faster delivery. This is the game is fast delivery, and then we'll figure it all out. So these things are always going on in the background. And what we've got here is this example of granularity. So up at the top, these are big picture stories, aren't they, which will play out over months and years. Whereas at the bottom, this is work that's going to be fiddly and tasks that take an hour or a couple of days and loads of different things to do just in order to figure out this one blue balloon finance service at the top.
I just want to read the little blue sticky. So design a seamless flow, run credit check, link with car finance, risk analysis, issue finance, checking if compliant.
Check it's compliant. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, transfer owner, legal docs. Yeah.
So a bunch of stuff that we can think straight away, this is what's going to be needed. But what becomes clear when you've broken it apart like this is that our success, all of the goals at the top, depends on the behaviors of people and systems that are outside of our control. There are things happening here where we can't control what someone's credit actually is. So that's something we're going to have to look up, and it might mean that we can't give credit to everybody. It also means that someone has to agree to have a credit check run. These are behaviors that we can't make them do. We can build a system that enables them to do it. That doesn't mean they do it.
Write persuasive marketing copy to make them want to do it.
Exactly, which makes them want to do it even less.
Yes. Cynical, anybody?
Maybe a little bit. So all of these things are, the blue things are in our control, but there's a bunch of stuff that's outside of our control. And that's where we're going to introduce Team Squirrel, who are They are different from either Team Hawk or Team Otter. They're at ground level in between the two. And we went with squirrels because they're cute and adorable. You want them, but also they will mess your stuff up. And whatever you've planned out, they're going to find a way around it. They're going to steal the bird seed. And
So Squirrel is the best team, let's be honest.
yeah, they are absolutely. So they are standing in for customers and third parties and suppliers and everybody who's outside of your business, but whom you absolutely depend upon. And so we can see now we've got Team Squirrel, what they do matters, but also we've got systems, third-party systems like car finance lists, linking with car finance, transferring owners. These are systems that actually the team at this company weren't familiar with, had never done it before. So that's where there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know how it's going to work out. So here's how we join the two stories up. We start or join the teams up. We start telling a story of Team Squirrel. What does one squirrel see and then do? And we're back at the coffee example, but now we've flipped it round. So in the story here, in order to want that balloon finance service, Team Squirrel needs to come to the end of their car lease, decide to refinance the balloon, then look for options. And at this point, I want to point out that the bottom, we've now realized that there's a bunch of stuff going on here that we actually hadn't thought of and didn't know about in this instance.
The question marks.
The question marks. This is something that the company hadn't directly done, is knowing where people are when they come to the end of a financing agreement and are thinking about their balloon, knowing where they go to look for options, knowing if we could be there in those places as well. This is all uncertain, but we're going to need to figure that out. Next, Team Squirrel, having looked for options, need to find our service. We don't know how that's going to happen. Then they need to get a quote for balloon finance. This we are pucker at. We've done this loads and loads of times. So this is where it starts to get simple and we see lots of stuff jumping in. Then the squirrel needs to be approved. They need to have the right level of credit and be able to actually move forward with it. And then they need to take the offer, at which point we're actually very comfortable. All the blue stickies at that end are really easy. It's the stickies at the other end that suddenly become clear that actually this is not as easy as we thought. And the behaviors we're looking at is how does someone find our service? How do they choose our service? How do they use our service? And how do they get the value? And those are the 4 questions that we're mapping out, the behaviors that ultimately matter. So what do we do with this?
This is so exciting. I have to take my jacket off.
It's getting hot and bothered with the excitement of it. We're going to jump to another exercise. So we're going to go back to our coffee example. And now we're going to add in simple bad multiverse outcomes.
Now we're meeting the multiverse.
We are. So in this, we can imagine that the green sticky line that we drew before, that is the good universe where the squirrel gets through the entire story and they're happy and we're happy.
Everything goes to plan, happy ending.
What we're going to add is at every step along the way, the branching universe where the squirrel doesn't do what we wanted, doesn't see what we wanted, and they're basically dropping out and they're not going to be part of the story anymore. There's loads of those, which is why it's the multiverse. And the sort of horrifying thing is that there are loads and loads of universes where it doesn't work out, and only a handful where it does work out because so many things have to go right in order. So here's the next exercise. If you want to pause and try writing them in on your paper, we're just writing in the bad multiverse outcome underneath each of the good universe outcomes.
So if I can remember mine from before. So look on phone. Maybe I look on my phone, but my battery's dead.
That's a good example.
Or seeing red dots. Maybe I see red dots, but they're too far to walk to. So I think, oh well, I won't get coffee after all.
The horror. I can't. I feel that would not be acceptable.
Can of Monster instead.
We have done that in a time of desperation. Right, we're going to go and jump back into our Miro board. Is that the right one? Yeah. So we'll look through some real examples from people in real workshops. So here we've got one where look out of cab window or can't see due to torrential rain. Ask a driver or local. We're in the middle of nowhere. Actually, no, it doesn't work. Gets out of cab. I no longer want a coffee. No one wants to speak with me.
Oh.
Oh, there's your one. Everything is too far away.
Mm.
So, one thing that always happens here is happening again.
I've
You just did
I
it.
just did, I can't believe it. We've done this so many times and I literally just fell into the exact same trap that everyone always does.
And if you've written it down on a piece of paper, I bet you've done it too. What is it? Well, I said to just write down the simple bad universe outcome.
So what person sees, what person does,
And then you just say what they don't.
what
They
they
don't
don't.
see that,
Exactly,
or
they
they don't
don't.
do that. But what Carissa just did, what the people in this workshop did, what everybody in every single workshop I've ever run does, is they tell a story about why the person
Mm.
didn't do it. So they conflate the bad thing happening with why the bad thing is happening. And that's brilliant. That is your brain being a brilliant brain.
This is the superpower that's also the biggest weakness.
Exactly.
Mm.
The reason it's a big weakness is that it then traps you in a simple story, which I've seen teams lose months trying to fix a simple story that was wrong because it's very hard to actually pull yourself out of it
Mm.
once you've got trapped in it. What we're going to do then is see what we do about that
So
differently.
just for absolute clarity, ideally what we'd have written was, so
Oh
what was
yeah,
it?
we
I was
fix
going,
these,
let's
won't we?
fix these. I think
Fix
that's
these.
going to be helpful. Yeah.
So look out of cab window or
Or
don't
don't.
look
Okay.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Ask a driver or local or oh, can't select things or don't ask. Like it's that
It's
simple.
that
And then
simple,
we
right?
join this
Yeah.
up.
It's funny, yeah, that the smallest thing is it can be a story without you realizing it.
Mm, the smallest things, it's
Yeah.
true. Coffee search on Google Apple Maps or don't search.
Or don't.
Now, here's the next trick is there are actually many reasons why somebody might not search. There are many reasons why someone might not ask. So let's dig into those. And that's what we're doing over here. We've already fixed this one. This is later in their story where they've walked into selected coffee shop, they've looked for a menu or seen the menu, and now they're ordering the default coffee or don't order. And that's the moment we're getting into here. So another exercise for you to do now. What reasons can you think right now why somebody might not order that coffee?
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they realize they don't have time to wait for the coffee. They have to run off and go and meet someone, which they abandon.
Yeah. Like there could be a long queue, or they could see that the barista is hopeless.
A wanky coffee drinker. Hmm.
Could be. Yeah.
Are you
This
referring to
person, yeah,
yourself?
yeah. This person doesn't have a top knot.
Mm.
They're not using the correct sort of coffee machine.
Or conversely, maybe the menu is too confusing, too jargon filled, and you don't understand the wanky coffee jargon.
That could be one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Maybe you've got, I don't know, you've got allergies, but you can't see an alternative milk listed.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Mm.
Nice.
What are some other common ones?
Maybe it's in a foreign language or written too small for
Mm.
you and you haven't brought your glasses.
Hmm.
We've actually got some examples people made earlier. Like my phone doesn't work, actually. I can't do Apple Pay would be one.
Oh yeah,
And
phones
I
just.
realize it's cashless and I can't actually pay. I don't understand the menu. You said something like that. Or I had to order something that I don't like. They didn't have my preferred coffee on the menu at all. I want a flat white, but they only have cortados. The horror. Or there's a tech issue at the store, like power outage, forgot my wallet, they have nothing I want, too expensive. The thing with this, I've seen this go to like a dozen different reasons.
Mm.
Once you start coming up with these stories, you can come up with more because that is your brain's superpower, is coming up with just so stories for why something might have or not have happened.
So firstly, like coming up with one simple story is kind of level one, but then once you break out of that and you challenge yourself to come up with lots of stories, that's kind of an extension of the superpower.
It is
Nice.
turning it back into an ultimate superpower. And this is where things get strategic. Because now, for each of those simple stories, we're going to suggest an option that we could do. So if we look here, there are some options which normally would just connect these up really clearly, but that one is fairly well connected up, isn't it? If it's too expensive, then if we're the owner of the coffee shop, we could change the price, and that might make it not too expensive for people. If people are coming in and that we don't have what they want, we could diversify the menu. Or if it's confusing, if they don't understand it, we could simplify the menu. Maybe you could have too many options, people won't decide. You could have too few options, they don't have anything
Mm.
anyone wants. So either of those would have a completely different solution to it. But we don't know which of these stories are true at this point. And it might be that it's got too many options and not the things that people actually want.
So it could be lots of things all kind of
Yeah,
jumbled together.
jumbled together. So for each of these stories, we can then suggest an option that we could try in order to resolve that story. We
Actually,
can,
I should point out at this point, it starts to feel quite messy,
oh yes,
and that's by design.
it is by design. What we're doing is not making it confusing. What we're doing with this is just exposing a fraction of what's there in reality. Because all of these options were always available, all of these options were always there to be found. It's just you may not have brought them into vision. So what we're doing with this map is focusing on an important step that matters to us. And then we're zooming in to think, well, what are all the options that we could do here?
Mm.
And there's going to be loads. There's going to be more than you are comfortable with. But what you will find is that some of them are more powerful than others. And we'll get to that in a moment.
Mhm.
Because there's two sorts of options that you want to look at. There are options which mitigate, like if it is that it is too expensive, then I need to change the price.
Or make the ingredients worse. Boo!
Um,
Anyway, I guess the point is lean into the overwhelm at this point. It can feel overwhelming suddenly seeing all of the mess exposed
yeah,
because reality is messy.
yeah.
And we can try and try and try to deny that fact, but ultimately it just hurts us.
That is exactly it. So we've got a set of options which could mitigate the problem, but we've also got some options which could clarify what's going on. Because one thing that happens often is you realize, my God, we've got a dozen different stories about what might be going on, and actually we all have different opinions about which ones it is.
And
And
it's probably not all of them equally.
yeah, and it's probably something else that nobody's written down.
Oh,
And so there's the options to clarify. And these are actions we could take right now. Well, we could go down to the store and we could just watch people as they're coming and trying to order coffee.
people watching in a cafe sounds like a dream come true. Let's
Isn't
go
it
do
good?
that.
Can we have a coffee while we're doing it? Not from that coffee shop, though. It's got terrible coffees. Then we could also, if people come and look at the menu and then leave, we could grab them and just ask them why they're leaving. We can very quickly clarify what is actually going on here. And frequently, what we'll find is that it's something we weren't even expecting. And because we weren't in the coffee shop, we didn't realize that there's a faint smell of sewage. And that's why everyone comes in and then leaves again.
Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Nor did I until it
But
just
that
popped
would
out.
be a deal breaker, wouldn't it?
It would. So if we jump back to our slide deck, what we've seen there is we just add simple bad multiverse outcomes. And when your team start to share, if you're working with a team and they start to share stories, you immediately just put the simple bad outcome there and you start capturing the stories. And you want to, if you're focusing on a step, you want to tell at least three different why stories. Three is the magic number, it seems. If you tell one, that's a trap. If you tell two, you end up with a debate and someone will suggest A/B testing it. You don't want to go there because it's not the right time. Once you've told three, then it unlocks more possibilities.
Okay.
And then you choose options above for each one, which either mitigate or clarify. So no debates. You don't need to argue about who's right, who's wrong, which of these options you should immediately consider doing. You're not going to do that yet. You're just going to add stories and options.
How do you know when you should stop adding stories and options for a particular step?
That's a good question, actually. There's a little bit of a sensing it out sort of vibe. So there is once you get started and you start people sharing stories, there's a burst of energy. And same when you start adding options, there's a burst of energy, and then it'll start to die off again. And once you've got, as long as you've got at least three stories and options down, then you can stop right away. But if ideas keep coming, then don't kill it unnaturally, because it's a sign that there's more there and that people have stuff that they need to share.
So there's an aspect of sensitivity as a facilitator to just gauge the energy.
Yes, yeah.
And keep digging if you need to.
Keep digging if you need to.
Urge people to move along if you need to.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Secretly, what this step is a micro pre-mortem. So you might have heard of the pre-mortem, which is a technique from Gary Klein originally, which is the idea that you, at the beginning of a project, imagine that you're already at the end of it and it's gone horribly wrong. And then you get everybody to share why it's gone wrong. This works really well because humans are terrible at predicting what's going to go wrong or how something's going to work out. But we're brilliant at looking back at something that has gone wrong and diagnosing why it's gone wrong. The other trick is it makes it safe. You've said at the end it has gone wrong. You're not threatening people by telling them why their beautiful idea is going to go wrong.
Hmm.
We've already set the rules of the game that it has gone wrong. Nobody's nose is being put out of joint. It becomes safe to share the things that people were worried about anyway. What we're doing here is a pre-mortem, but at a very, very fine level of granularity. We're saying somebody doesn't go into the coffee shop. Okay, now we pre-mortem why they didn't go into the coffee shop. Or we were doing it with the menu in the example before. So if you want extra facilitation guidance on that, it's micro pre-mortems with the similar vibe to how pre-mortem works. So here's what matters about that exercise. You said it, and you bob on, there is no one root cause. There's no one reason why people aren't ordering coffees, or there's no one reason why people aren't doing anything in the world. There's always lots and lots of interweaving different factors that go into it. And you'll also never really know why things are happening. That's okay. You don't need to know. You're not a scientist. Unless you are a scientist, then you're a scientist. But if you're not, if you're working in business, you're not a scientist. You don't need to know exactly why something is happening. You just need to have enough clarity to take action. So to get unfreed from the root cause trap, tell more stories. Simple thing. 3+ stories.
To get freed from the simple stories trap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. And from thinking you can find the root cause. Don't do root cause analysis on this. That's tip number 1. Tell more stories.
Yeah. So it's less about finding the one right answer and more about sensing which direction feels like it's going to be a useful direction to go in based on lots of kind of data points that come out of this.
Yes. Yeah, you're going to put all the options on the table or as many options as possible and then use intuition to choose which one to go rather than having one or two not very good options and then trying to choose between those.
Right. So basically there is quite a lot of agency among the people who are attending a workshop like this to kind of draw on their own experience and their own area of expertise to kind of say, I have a hunch that this feels like it might be important.
Yeah.
And that combines with everyone else's, and some things won't ever be clear, but some things will kind of feel more important than others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I've seen it over and over again. The group will start with certain ideas, and then as we unpack more and more stuff, the vibe shifts and the energy shifts, and we get people more interested in doing options they wouldn't have even considered before, and suddenly it becomes clear. We'll get to that even more in a minute. Another tip to help reduce the overwhelm that you noticed absolutely rightly is you don't need to unpack every single step of your map. Focus on the place in the map where you're most uncertain, the place where it is most monumentally important that you're right, and also you've got the most uncertainty.
Interesting. And I can imagine sometimes that is counter to the thing that sometimes people will gravitate towards the thing that they agree on that feels maybe safest or easiest to do.
Yep.
So there's paying attention to that, and sometimes that is the right direction to go in, but then there's also making sure you don't neglect the uncertainty which people might be actually like trying to draw away from.
Yes, that's exactly it. The biggest superpower of this is to make the uncertainty feel safer to go and tackle. Because what we're doing again with the granularity is breaking down the story into little chunks, is we're making it something you can actually get your hands around and think, yeah, we could actually go and figure that out.
And we do have tools for that in the full Master Multiverse Mapping course, but just for the sake of giving an example, what's one thing that people can do to actually gravitate towards the uncertain areas?
I mean, often it works surprisingly well just to ask people where they feel most uncertain and just get the energy of the room and then see where things go. The other thing that's amazing is often once you've mapped out these options and people have seen, oh, we could tackle that uncertainty by doing that thing that I know how to do, they'll just go off and do it. And suddenly you'll have a load of action that's incredibly helpful. So you tell more stories and then you create many options for action. but you're going to try to choose the options that have the highest leverage for reducing your uncertainty. That's the rubric for how do you choose. Often those are the actions that just feel right because it's like, yeah, that's gonna give us the best results.
Mm,
Should we
yeah.
get more specific on what those might be?
Is that coming next?
Yeah.
Hurrah.
But before we get into that, we've peppered some quotes in between from real multiversonauts who have had good results using this method. So this is Ahmed, and he talked about how well, we'd advised him to start small. He'd been trying to persuade people to start doing multiverse mapping, wasn't really getting anywhere. So he didn't actually. So then he decided to do it in stealth mode, as he said, applying it with individual devs without telling people what it is. And he said the outcome was great. We had developers suddenly change their complete approach to product decisions. They spent way less time in Thoughtland and more time testing with users.
Woohoo.
And I can say we've seen that over and over again as well. Once you've unpacked, oh my God, look how uncertain we are, how many different stories might be going on here, then it opens the door for people to actually want to go and find out. So let's go back to our car
Balloon.
balloon service. Here we are at the point where we've got perhaps some of the most uncertainty. What we're doing is mapping out, oh, we're mapping out the bad options here, aren't we? The bad multiverses for us. So here's the thing where at the end of the lease, well, maybe they don't refinance their balloon. Or maybe they decide to refinance, but they don't look for options. They already know where to go. That's one of my stories. Or maybe they look for options, but they don't find our service. There's all sorts of reasons why that could happen. Maybe they find our service, but they decide not to get a quote. All sorts of reasons why that could happen. Maybe they go for a quote, but they don't get approved. There's several reasons why that might happen. And then maybe they don't take the offer. They get a quote, but they don't take the quote. We don't have any way to control any of those things. So these are the bad universes. What about where we're most uncertain? Well, we can see the clues down the bottom with the arrow, the question marks, isn't it? It's these steps that the team in question just didn't actually have any data on because it wasn't something they'd done before. When it came to the getting quotes and being approved,
That was familiar territory.
yeah, thousands done, pretty easy. It's the first part of the map where it's the most confusing. So what might we do? We zero in on this moment where they decide to refinance the balloon or not. Now, why might they not refinance the balloon? One option would be they just get another PCP. The thing you can do is exchange the car, get a new car, and just pay a different monthly amount, but keep going. So that's one option. They could pay it off as a lump sum. Maybe they've used the time while they're paying off this finance to save up enough to pay the balloon and they just pay it down and it's done. Or maybe it's something else we don't know about. This is a weird one. I thought of several reasons and then I keep forgetting them when I come to put them on the map. But if you're working with a team, they'll be able to think of more options as well. But something we don't know about is always actually an option that's on there.
I mean, you have a decision fatigue, right? Just do nothing and then whatever the agreement says is the default, right? That's another one.
That's a good one.
Just putting off the decision until the decision is made for you.
Yep.
Or maybe they, I don't know, decide to stop driving altogether.
Could be. Yeah. Maybe they've moved to a city that doesn't really make it favourable for driving. There are all sorts of reasons, aren't there? So now we'll look at our options for action. So, well, we could pivot to offering PCP. Now, we know that in the case of this company, they absolutely did not want to do that. That wasn't a realistic option for them, but it is still an option. They could choose that if they wanted to. So we can write it down. Great. If they want another PCP, why don't we get into that game? If it's pay it off as a lump sum, well, we need to clarify this. So perhaps we should interview PCP customers, talk to some and figure out, are they saving up money or are they not? Does our story stack up against reality at all? Or we could offer PCP customers our finance. So we could say, we could find PCP customers and just get in touch with them, ideally when they're coming to the end of their lease agreement, and offer them some finance and find out if it's something that's interesting in the first place. We'll also find out where they are, etc., etc. Bit of a clue there. That one is the uncertainty busting option. We just find where they are, offer them the finance, figure out if they want it. We can do that using our existing tools. We don't need to build a whole new system. So that gives us a great option for moving forward. So to make it small and practical, we take that option and the team otter can say, hey, look, while we start building this, we're obviously going to keep building. We're going to do work and make progress and feel good. How about we also do these steps? We'll grab some car finance lists so we know who's got a PCP loan. We'll phone up 100 potential customers, people who have a balloon that they'll need to refinance, and then we'll offer to quote them for refinancing using our system that we already have. And this is a great step to take. Seems sensible now, I put it like this. We can also, when we're sharing this with Team Hawk, connect it directly with the strategy that we think Team Hawk are taking. So we can now say, well, look, if fewer than 20 out of 100 people agree to even get a free quote that won't leave any mark on their credit record and there's no strings attached, well, then we might want to think again, because that would worry us that we haven't got something good here. And if fewer than 4 people out of the 100 end up taking our finance in the end, we'd also worry. We'd want to think about pivoting, at least think again, if not kill the whole thing.
And this is, I mean, pivoting relates to another of our core methods, isn't it?
It does. So
Pivot triggers.
pivot triggers is something you fit into multiverse mapping. What we're doing with those little grey stickies is actually writing pivot triggers, which is setting preconditions for a small probe that would make us want to reconsider, want to change our mind if we found they come true. We can share that with Team Hawk. So Team Otter can share that with Team Hawk. And one thing that almost always happens is this is kind of a relief to Team Hawk because this is a high-level strategic conversation. This isn't Team Otter complaining about details that Team Hawk don't want to be involved with. This is Team Otter setting out the actual major strategic issues and coming with a plan for how to resolve it and to learn very, very quickly. So we hear several things back from Team Hawk, and we're going to go through what those ones are. So in this case, up at the top, Team Hawk are saying, yes, let's do that. Good plan. But actually, we'd only need to see 2 out of 100 get the finance to feel confident. You've set the bar too high. We know that we only need this to be a little bit lower, and maybe we can be flexible about it. The other thing that Team Hawk are starting to do is telling some news stories. So they're still thinking we'll learn by getting into market. And here we are getting into the market and learning. They're also thinking that's strategic. These people are being strategic. But they're also thinking, there might be regulatory issues with this. Maybe we're not actually set up to be able to offer stuff over the phone. Maybe that's something that's dodgy. We better check with legal, check with compliance. We need to make sure we're doing this in the right way. There's almost always a way that you can find to do the thing for real way, way quicker than it would take to build it properly. And that's what we're always looking for. How do we work around to get to that point? So there's the first example. The other thing you might hear is actually you were lowballing it. And they say, well, that's great, but actually, no, we reckon you can get 7 out of 100 to take this finance. And if it's less than that, then we'd want to think again. And it can be enormously clarifying to lay out these numbers and show what reality looks like.
Really clarifying. And it's like, it reminds me of, in the early days of my career and seeing a marketing funnel. This is like that, but actually with a useful amount of detail in it.
At the psychology level.
Yes. And just, at many levels, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the eagle-eyed of you might have noticed that we've added some numbers to the top of the map, which is just showing how many, if we start with 1,000 people coming to the end of their lease, how many people do we estimate might get through to the end? I can say that there are times when we've mapped something out for a team, and out of 1,000 people at the start, by the end of the multiverse map, we've ended up with one person's left toe, and that's all that's got through. And the person who had the idea realizes that it wasn't going to work after all. So that can happen. So both of these are examples where we're going to move forward. Sometimes you also just nail it and the exec says, yes, you've got that right. These are the right pivot triggers. This is the right approach. Go for it, which is really nice. But what we've done is move from an unmoored target of just build this thing and hope that it works to specific metrics that tell us what's enough, what's good enough for this to be worth doing. However, sometimes you get a different message back. And this is where you can start to infer goals that the execs can't or won't tell you. So one thing you'll often hear is actually, even if nobody takes the finance, even if nobody becomes a customer ever, we still have to build this. We're still going to ship it for reasons. I mean, they're not going to tell you. But it might be stuff like we just need to show investors that we can ship. And we can't reveal that we know that it's not going to work. We've just got to ship it. And that's the game we're in right now. Or we've promised this to an important partner. It's part of some deal that's going on, which you're not party to, but we need to just get it done.
Yeah. I think the nice thing about this is like whichever of those outcomes it is, it's useful to you, the people like whoever's doing the work, you're getting useful stuff back.
Yeah.
Even if it's actually, we've got to do this anyway, or you need to change the pivot triggers a little bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of, in a way, it's getting closure on what happens next.
Yeah, you don't have to worry anymore as much, do you? Now, if it's this example, you know that you just build it at a basic level and get it done. And that's going to make everybody happy. It doesn't need to be brilliant. Sometimes that's just the reality. That's okay. There is a fourth option, which is where you do want to have your alarm bells ringing a little bit. And that is when you hear, no, we're confident in the market opportunity. It's up to you to make it happen.
I spoke too soon. This is not a happy ending.
This is the one where you're like, okay, start protecting yourself. You're being set up here. This is the heads I win, tails you lose play. It might be that the exec is in a bind themselves. The exec you're working with might have their hands tied, and they might be bound to some sort of strategy. They might be depending on this to work, and they can't admit that it's not going to work at this point. They might have to let it fail in order to achieve something else. Their bonus might depend on it, or they might be setting you up to be the scapegoat.
Which, in a way, I mean, it's still useful feedback in that it might be helping you avoid the worst case scenario, which is that you are being kind of set up to be a scapegoat. Like, if you get this sort of outcome from going through this process, it's a useful signal that you, like Tom said, you might need to protect yourself, start looking for other jobs potentially. Just check what your options are personally.
Exactly. But at least you know, as you were saying, like now you've got information that you otherwise didn't have.
You might not know until you get the meeting with HR, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of bringing that horror show forward a bit.
Yeah. All that from making a simple map that takes you about 30 to 40 minutes and then having a conversation with the exec. That's how powerful it is. So the outcome in every case is at least that we're aligned. We've had that strategic conversation. And now, even if it's under the surface, if it's subtext, we still know where each other stand in a different way.
Most of the time, it's one of the first three useful and happy outcomes, isn't it?
That is worth.
The fourth one is a rare edge case.
Yeah, we hope you never have to deal with it. But we have to be realistic. So now we're going to say what happened in reality in this real situation. There was no map because we didn't know about multiverse mapping at this point. This was the origin story that triggered multiverse mapping. And now we'll find out why. Because in reality, the build ploughed on. In reality, almost nobody wanted to refinance their balloon. In reality, almost nobody who did looked for any options. In reality, almost nobody found our service. In reality, one person applied and they didn't get approved. So it took 6 months in the end to build the whole thing out, and then it crashed and burned. Now, the horrifying thing is we knew that, or the team in question, it wasn't me on the team or you on the team, the team in question knew that 2 weeks in because they had a researcher working with them and they said, hey, let's test our funnel. We'll do a good job. We'll make sure it's really usable. The researcher went off to find some people who were customers, came back after a week and said, I can't find anyone. I don't think there are any customers for this.
Literally nobody wants to talk about this. It's irrelevant.
Yep. Then the team sent them off to go and just find anyone who's got any sort of finance and let's test it. And the researcher did and managed to find some people and took them through and learned that there was absolutely no reason for this product to exist. Pretty much everybody who's on those PCP deals knows that the rate they're getting isn't great, but the convenience of it is why they're doing it. You get to have a new car every 2 or 3 years. for a reasonable monthly payment.
So it's not about the kind of hardcore logical financial optimizing your pound
Yeah,
and how far your pound goes. That's kind of not the point of this.
not the point. But the team in question found that out within 2 weeks of starting,
Mm.
but carried on building for 6 more months. Then it was launched, and then the rest is a crash and burn story.
It's yeah, I mean, it's just it kind of points at another principle that dictates how we operate as a business, which is the people inside your business rarely map onto the people outside your business. If you've got a
Yeah,
financial company full of very, very logically orientated or
highly numerate people.
highly numerate, yes, and then they're sort of just assuming that your average car driver thinks about money in the same way as them, that's a problem.
Big problem. So this was the most shocking example to me of something that I think I'd seen over and over again, which finally drove home the reality that evidence doesn't persuade anyone. And if evidence isn't persuading, then getting more evidence persuades even less. It's just not sort of game you can win. And this was the genesis then of first the idea of pivot triggers and setting conditions by which you would agree to change your mind, and having these ways of testing where you're going to end up so that you get an experience that maybe does shift your beliefs about things. And then taking that around different companies, realizing that doing this mapping, although it was something that some people can do in their head and just instinctively understand how customers are moving and think about all the multiverses, a lot of people have never done this and just don't have that experience. So a multiverse map is a way to get everybody able to see the same story and to get on board with how this works. Let's flash forwards to 5 years later. Now it's me, I'm in a different company, and I've got multiverse mapping, I've got pivot triggers, I've got all these methods that have come about. And there's a team, and they have a really logical idea that it seems obvious that people in the market are going to want. In this case, they're building tools for recruiters, and they've noticed that recruiters are spending a long time between an applicant getting in touch and them having a first call with the applicant. And this is drastically increasing the time it takes to get applicants into roles. It also means that applicants have sometimes been snapped up before they've even had a conversation with the recruiter. This seems bad. To the team, it seems obvious that this is because it's hard to schedule those calls. And so they think Calendly. We'll integrate Calendly into our product. The recruiters
Mm.
will all use it, and then it will just take away all that appointment tennis.
So boom, simple story is it's too hard to schedule these calls. We'll build something to automate some of the scheduling.
Exactly. So now, armed with the right tools, we mapped this out, and within like half an hour, mapped it all out, and realized that there was a really quick way we could test it this week. And the team agreed we were going to email 10 customers and offer them free Calendly, which we would set up for them. And then they would be able to use it to book appointments really, really quickly. So we're doing a little test of the idea that we can do in a week rather than 2 months of integration building. And the team were confident, obviously. They reckoned that we could get 6 out of 10 customers to agree to this free offer. It's a good offer, free Calendly. Pretty cool. So sure enough, that took an hour to get to that agreement, then send out the email, about another half hour or so to write the email, send it out. By the end of the week, can you guess? You know, but can you guess how many of the customers replied and said, yes, please? It was
A left toe.
zero. It was a left toe. It's sort of a left toe because in the end, the team did twist someone's arm and got them to try it. And they agreed to go for the program. We got them all set up. And some of the other pivot triggers we set were if it turns out to be too difficult for the recruiters to use, then we might think again. If they had access to it and they just weren't really using it, then we might think again. As it turned out, happened in this case, we got them set up and then they never once used it, never opened it. So out of
Pretty clear signal.
very clear signal.
Yeah.
So by the end, basically by a week later, we'd got an absolutely rock solid clear signal that this was not worth it. So we were able to save that development team 2 months of integration time on something that wouldn't have ever been used. And they could work on something else that was more valuable instead.
Really, really happy ending.
And We've seen this happen, that sort of thing happen again and again. And what this method has enabled is a load of other stuff as well, which are more stories than we have time to tell right now. But because you're clarifying exactly what really matters and tackling the uncertainty first, you will hit deadlines much, much more likely. Because where there are surprises, you find them early on when you can still adapt and pivot rather than finding them at the 11th hour because you've put them off till later. We used it to discover a successful new product inside of 3 months. This was multiple iterations of multiverse maps, multiple layers of understanding real world situations. Frequently, we've gone from constantly butting heads to pushing in one direction, but this is a direct quote from a multiverse who did this. And over time, I think it's got a 50% kill rate. Often, simply by sitting down with some bright spark who's had a good idea and then mapping it out, you will kill the idea in that session within an hour because they realize actually there is no way that this can work.
How does the bright spark feel about you killing their idea?
Not always great, but relieved in the end because I mean they haven't then wasted weeks trying to figure that out and building capital behind it before they then find out in an embarrassing way. So yeah, usually it's pretty. One thing that's good about it is it's fairly non-confrontational. It's not you telling them it's a bad idea. It's you making the idea with them. It's like a prototype that you're making on paper, which then they see, oh, hang on a minute, I hadn't thought about that. And they realize it's not you telling them they're stupid.
The other 50% that we should probably spell out in this list of bullets is that it strengthens ideas that were going to work.
Yes.
It makes them happen better and faster. So yeah, let's put that in the next version of this deck.
That's a good idea. And another example from a lovely multiverse Phil Hesketh, he used it to do an enormous transformation, some of the details of which we might share in a case study at some point soon.
He said, the multiverse map almost became like an icon for a different way of working and a different way of thinking. And I think that probably had some effect on snapping people out of their normal rhythms and the normal ways of doing. And they stepped forward and engaged a little bit more.
And who would want anything more than that? So thank you, Phil, for that report. Delighted. So what you've seen today is that success is about other people or squirrels doing things. It's not about you just shipping more stuff. You can ship all the stuff in the world, and if the squirrels don't come and climb on your obstacle course, you don't succeed. We've also learned how you can use specificity, breaking down the granularity, thinking about one person, what one person sees and does. We can use stories and options, and we can set triggers in ways that influence strategy in real situations. And we've also seen that you can just start doing this now without asking for permission. It's something you can do in stealth mode, like we saw Ahmed do earlier. Frequently, we do this. We'll be on a call with a client or a team. While they're talking, we're just mapping in the background. And then if it becomes relevant, we'll share what we've been mapping out and say, hey, what do you think is happening between there and there?
Exactly. It's just another way of taking notes.
Yeah. Yeah. Takes a little while to learn, a little while to practice. And that's
Speaking
why
of which,
we're going to suggest some options for moving forward from this. So if you like the sound of this, if you like the sorts of powers that multiverse mapping gives you, you actually have enough information from what you've seen in this session today to go and do it for yourself. If you love figuring things out, you don't mind quite a lot of trial and error, and you've got enough time, then you can go forth.
Absolutely. And we do know a lot of people who've done that.
Absolutely. And do let us know about it if you have success with it or if you find anything exciting. Share back. If you would like to learn more and you'd like a little bit more hand-holding, a little bit more guidance on how to do this in more depth, this is for facilitators and leaders who want to master multiverse mapping in depth and faster, because we'll basically give you all of the secrets rather than you having to figure it out for yourself. You can take our 4-hour self-paced course that I think is still at multiversemapping.com, and we'll put all the links in the description below.
Yeah, goes into lots more detail and gives lots more examples.
It's something that somebody said was the best online course they'd taken.
Ooh.
Yes. Other people didn't say that, we should be clear. You could also, option 3 would be to get hands-on help. So this is something that we do with you as well. You can book a 90-minute cartography session with us, and basically you come and you unpack your brain, and we sort it all out and tidy it up for you. And you'll leave with clarity about what's blocking you and exactly what to do next.
Yeah, and I think the thing that people find surprising and pleasant is that you don't need to come with a plan of what to say. You just start talking and we kind of help bring out the stuff that needs to come out and then give structure to it.
We do, yeah. This is leaning on the fact that we've done thousands of these now, so we can map and pull things in way, way faster. And we bring in other methods where we want to, where we need to, where it makes sense. And we follow your energy, follow where you're leading, and then drag you to dig into areas that you might have been overlooking. And the final option is if you're still not sure, if you have questions or you just want to talk to us about it and figure out if this makes sense for you to do, grab a 25-minute coffee call, no strings attached, and we'll help you figure out what you need.
So yeah, again, the links for all of those things are in the description below.
Yes. And with that, thank you very much for joining us for this intro to multiverse mapping. I hope you have a wonderful time mapping.
Good luck.